What's up, guys? Back with another video. So today we're going to be doing a spiritual breakdown on Antz. And before I even do this breakdown, first of all, shout out to Antz. This movie is a great movie. And this movie's just great, so shout out to Antz. So the characters you see on the screen right now are Z and Bella. Bella, I believe, is her name. So I'm going to be doing a spiritual breakdown on these two along with other characters that are in the story. And in this movie, there was a lot of moments that could have easily been a video. So I'm going to go ahead and break down some of those moments and some symbolism and some meanings I've drawn from those moments and share it in this video. So let's get into it. All right, so the first character we're going to be starting with is the main antagonist of this movie, and his name is General Mandible. So in this movie, some of the plot entails ants and their colony. So he's the general, so he's the head, one of the top leads in their colony, alongside the queen and other people up there. And in this movie, they have talks of protecting the colony, and not only protecting it, but fighting battles to help expand the colony. So his character, his archetype in the movie, with those being the goals in mind, he's very straightforward, to the point, and he's willing to sacrifice anyone to get the goal done, to get the job done. Now, eventually in this movie, we come to find out that he does have some personal motives behind wanting to, assist, help expand the colony. And because of these personal motives, in the end, it actually results in his downfall and his eventual demise. As throughout the movie, they're talking about, yes, our colony. But one of the final scenes before his last moments, this man literally, he's sprinting and he says, I am the colony. So we can see that, and let's zoom out a little bit, right? We're talking about the movie Antz. Now let's zoom out and get into the spiritual talk. So he is greed. He's a person who could be represented by that greed, that greedy energy, that type of vibration, you could say, and that personality. That's how he's portrayed. And what is the lesson behind this? The lesson is that greed can lead to someone's downfall, can lead to your downfall. So, and this goes for me too. So just in life, when you're thinking about things and ways to improve, whatever it is, think about greed and understand that an overabundance of greed, wanting to take at any cost, wanting to take no matter who's at stake, no matter whose life you're risking, so you can gain, is dangerous. Well, why is it dangerous? It is dangerous because karma, what goes around comes around. Not only that, but when you put things out, this type of energy, this type of frequency into the world, it creates destruction, imbalance, which we can see in this movie when he eventually perishes and reaches his demise. Because even one of his fellow commanding officers, and that's how they refer in the movie as well, his commanding officers, they even had a change of heart. They even said, okay, hold on. The main character, which we will get to in this breakdown, the main character, right, who is Z, that's the name of the main character. The fellow commanding officer, started to see his point of view, started to understand, hold on, we should take care of the colony, actually take care of it, not just say we're taking care of it, but then sacrificing everybody, but let's actually try to make a difference and work together. So the lesson of General Mandible, just to sum it up, is that greed can lead to your demise. greed can lead to your demise. Even if it's backed by intentions of protection and you trying to save people, it won't work if you're sacrificing people for your own greed. All right, next breakdown. All right, so now the next character we have is Weaver. The first shout out to Weaver, because in this movie, Weaver is a real one. Weaver is a real one. I repeat, in this movie, Weaver is a real one. So Weaver in this story allows Z, once again, who's the main character, just literally letter Z, who's the main character, to take his place as the soldiers are going out to fight. Okay, and this is so he can get closer to the princess. We'll get into that, but let's stick to Weaver. So Weaver, his character, he is, as you can see in this picture, a confident character. You know, he's a strong character. But he is able to go against the grain. And the grain, let's just say, it's the programming. And in this movie, Antz, he's in a colony, he's in an army. The Ant military. We're going to call it that. He's in the Ant military, literally. And he knows all the training. He understands the quotas. He understands the work. But he still is able to think for himself, which is a theme of this movie. Especially it being Ant military and it being very strict. It's a certain set of rules. This is how you do things. So he's able to go against the grain, which allows the progression of this movie. So what does that mean? What does that have anything to do with symbolism or anything spiritual, okay? Well, what does that symbolize? That symbolizes that even when you're trained, even when you have the programming, even when you understand the quotas, that there's still a conscience. There's still a person, there's still you that you have to answer for. It's not just I was told to do this. There's still you in there that can allow you to make a decision to change for the better if you want. But it's still you in there that gives you a choice, a decision, the opportunity to change for the better, to take a risk. And that's what Weaver represents in this movie. That's one of the things he can definitely represent in this movie. The ability against the odds to take a chance, to take a risk that goes against everything you've been trained to do because of you. Not because anything you were trained to do, but because of you. And we can see that throughout the movie. This is Weaver. He's although he's strong built, his spirit as a character is still kind, stern. It's still helping. It's still in a control. But he still has that conscience of his own. And the reason that's important is because the previous person we talked about, General Mandible, was a person who was overconsumed. He became consumed by the greed up until a point where he believed himself he had no choice but to say, I am the colony, and allowed his emotions, his anger, his rage, his contempt of the other ants, even though he is an ant himself, to allow him to his demise. So shout out to Weaver, solid character, and he shows that there's always a conscience, meaning there's always a choice. All right, next breakdown. All right, so the next character is Princess Bala. Now, before I even get into it, I'm going to be honest. At first, Princess Bala, I ain't even going to lie. I was like, it's like that against the main character, my guy Z, but the answer to that is yes, it was like that. But anyway, Princess Bala, she is the daughter of the queen of the colony. So now it's going to get juicy because General Mandible, part of his scheme was he was going to sacrifice, or not sacrifice, but he was going to unalive, right? Take out the mother of the mother of Bala. So the queen of the colony, General Mandible, his big scheme was that he's agreeing to everything she's saying, right? And still, when it comes to it, doing it his way, but still getting the results. Because what is he doing? He's sacrificing people. What is he doing? He's not letting everybody know that, hey, this is the situation. So his plan is to take out the mother so that he can make her the queen, because she can be controlled more. Now, after all that being said, the rest of the movie, Bala, she started to grow on me. Throughout the movie, we can see that she comes from a higher tier. Okay, so in this Antz movie, it's like a caste system. It's a society with tiers to it. That's how it's ran. So in this movie, she's more, she'd be more wealthy then. She would come from a more, I don't know how you say, pristine, higher class. There you go, a higher class, right? So Princess Bala, she's a princess, and then she gets entangled with Z, who's a worker. He's just a regular worker ant, just there to, do his thing, work. And throughout this movie, we can see how she begins to change. Because through the beginning, towards a little bit of the middle of the movie, Bala is actually, right? Because she meets him at a bar. She meets Z at a bar in the movie. That's where she meets him. And in the bar, right? Because, the ants are getting litty off the water. I don't know what the ants are actually drinking, but they're getting litty off the Henny. Okay, let's just say that. They're getting litty off the Henny. So in this movie, they meet at a bar. And they have a great experience. So Z's thinking, okay, I'm in there. It was a great time. Come to find out later that Bala was actually, she was like, hey, I was just playing the part. We were just at a bar. I wasn't really trying to take it there and do all of that. So then Z begins to feel betrayed. But now Princess Bala, right? Although this is the circumstance, as she spends more time with the main character, she starts to understand his viewpoints. She starts to think for herself, because at first, Bala is completely engulfed in the lifestyle, understandably so. But she wants no parts of the worker life. She's literally saying, you're disgusting. But he starts to grow on her as they spend more time together, and they actually start to talk, like just person to person, ant to ant. They start to talk. And then she slowly starts to develop that conscience of her own to start thinking. And then she starts to side with Z. And she's like, okay, I can understand how General Mandible and the things he's trying to do, this isn't okay. And although they're trying to make it seem like it's something that's going to benefit, it's probably not. So spiritually, what can this mean for Bala? What does this even symbolize, if it symbolizes anything at all? Well, it symbolizes balance for Bala. When we first encounter Bala, we can see she is way on the other side of the scale. She's completely into the lifestyle. She's completely ill. I don't want nothing to do with those peasants. Ill. I don't want nothing to do with those workers, because that's just how she was brought up. But slowly but surely, as she starts to develop her own conscience and becomes an individual, then she's like, wait a minute. I don't have to do that. I can start thinking for myself. Hold on. What this guy's saying is starting to make sense. So Bala is the balance. It is important to have that. And that's what she's representing. All right, on to the next and final breakdown. All right, so we're back with the final character, the final breakdown of this video. And like I said, the main character's name is just the letter Z. And you can even say that looks like a lightning bolt because he came in with the electricity. Now, look, Z as a character is a great character. The thing about him is that he is the complete opposite of everyone he encounters in this movie. He is the complete opposite. And when I say opposite, when he encounters Bala for the first time, he's very awkward. He's very charming. He is charming, but he's still trying to collect himself to understand exactly how to interact in this circumstance, because he's a character that questions everything. That's his character. So instantly, he's already an individual because he's forced to become an individual. You see, by the very nature of him just questioning, asking why, while at the bar, he is dismantling. And when I say dismantling, it's just deconstructing other people's perspectives. And that's what causes the conflict. That's what causes him to stand out among everyone else. Because while everyone is status quo, we're working together to build a healthier community, right? That's what it's being pushed as in the ant army, the ant military, the ant colony. He's like, hold on. A lot of people are dying for nothing. Is this truly the general's intention to better the colony and protect us? If we're losing more ants and gaining what? What are we really gaining? That's the question he asks. And he's not afraid to break the norms. He's just himself. And that's one of the biggest lessons. He's just himself. And that dismantles everything. Just from him staying true to himself, that causes everyone around him to start to react to that. Why? Because when he encounters Bala, a prestigious person in the ant military, in the ant colony, he just talks to her like a regular person. He doesn't even know that she's a princess yet. He just talks to her like anybody else. And on the flip side of that, Bala, that's what draws her in. It even comes to a point in the movie where they're having a conversation and he's still nervous. He's still shy. He's still being awkward. He's still being all these things that everybody's going to look at him and think, we're going to count him out. He's not going to make it, but he proved everybody wrong in the movie. And going back to what I was talking about, it came to a part where Bala, Princess Bala herself even said, hey, you don't have to complain about the way you are. You don't have to be nervous, even though that's part of who he is. That's part of his character. She was saying that that's what made him attractive. That's what made him who he was. Not just attractive. That's what made him magnetic and drawn. That's what drew people to him. Not only the change that he drew, but that's what drew Bala to him. Not only Bala, but the change. So throughout this movie, we can see Z goes from a worker. He's a worker ant. And then, because of Weaver, shout out Weaver, the Weaver being a real one, he allows Z to take his spot in the battle. In the battle, he only goes to that so he can see Bala. But the result of that is he ends up getting kicked out the colony, right? He has to run. He's on the run. And he's with Bala. And then through this journey, they start to grow on each other. He starts to grow on her because he's being himself. So let that be the lesson. Let that be the message of this main character. Letter Z. Let that be the main character. Let that be the message of this main character. That being yourself is one of the strongest things you can do. It's one of the strongest energies you can possess. Cultivate yourself. Cultivate your personal life force, your personal energy, your personality, because it will create change on its own. And throughout the movie, we can see other people are always downing him. Other people are like, oh, he's just this, or oh, he's just that. They're trying to put him in a box. And the thing with this character is he's thinking bigger. He's thinking, and let me not just say bigger, it's just different than what the status quo is. So that creates contingencies. That creates issues because other people are like, wait, this is what we're doing, exclamation mark. This is the way, exclamation mark. What is he doing, exclamation mark. Meanwhile, he's just trying to be good himself, happy himself for most of the movie, until finally people in the movie, the other ants, not the general, because the greed took him out, but the Colonel Cutter, along with the other ants, start to rally behind him, because his message the whole time was, you need to be authentic. You need to be true with what you're doing. And that way it will naturally bring people together. And there's a better way to do this. And no one believed in him. No one was agreeing with him until it came up in time, the point where he tried to warn everyone. The ant this character Z, this ant, tried to warn everyone. He said, look, not only is there a flood, because that's what ended up happening, the colony got flooded, but he was telling them, hey, you were just using all these worker ants and sacrificing all these people to gain territory, different colonies, but it's destructive to the environment. It's destructive to our own colony's cohesion. That was his message. And finally, in the end, it took the explosion of the building up of all the lies, of all the mistrusts, of all the backstabbing, finally exploded and resulted in the colony becoming flooded, becoming destroyed. And it was only then that Z's message, the main character's message, was interpreted, was understood, because there was no other choice. And that's I love that connection right there. In the beginning, he had no choice. In the beginning, because he was asking questions, because he asked why, because simply he wanted to know something else, he was forced to change. He was forced to accept himself for who he was. And then in the end, everyone else had to accept who they were. And not only who they were going to be in that moment of chaos. And majority of the people saw his message and understood it and were like, okay, we do need to come together and actually work together, because there is a better way to do this. And not only a better way to do this, but they could see the greed that General Mandible was carrying and how it resulted in his downfall. So then they understood that, oh, wait, we don't agree with this. We're not this greedy. We're not this power hungry. We're not sacrificing all these people for nothing. We can work together. And why? It's because he stayed true to himself. So what's the message for the main character? Just be you. Just be you. All right, that's the video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.